Hello and welcome back to Off the Record with
Judah
and Kirk. Today we're going to just be talking about space travel, whether it's in real life or whether it's in comics or DC shows or Star Trek, things like that. Kind of the history of it in those
mediums. And then we're also talking about it in real life, which I think is going to be our starting point. We're going to start looking at some things in real life, the history of probably flight. Would that be where we'd start with the Wright
we could
brothers?
Start with actual flight. Yeah, that's a good idea. You will probably be able to tell this one is like very much unscripted, not very much like thought about. We haven't put a bunch of effort ahead of time into it. This is just going to be off the cuff discussions, and we'll kind of go where we want. We do have a general layout though, and so we'll start, like Judah just said, with real life space travel and I guess flight even, and then we'll move into Star Trek because I think Star Trek has a pretty grounded start for how they get around to having space travel. At least it's not totally like wild and fantasy, so I think it'll be a good way to get into that, and then we'll move into Judah's favorite thing,
DC baby, and get into some more high concept ways of traveling the universe that may not involve a ship.
Right. And then at the very end, we'll be talking about kind of what we see happening with the future of space travel. Maybe some actual missions that like NASA's sending up, or Japan, or other countries, even private companies now getting in on it. So we'll talk a little bit about that at the end too. But this will be, I think, a really fun one. I mean, I'll definitely be really interested to see how this turns out. So if you like it, let us know. We might do a follow-up.
Go down to the comments and say something about what has interested you about aviation and space travel and things like this. Maybe it's just a guy thing to have an interest in. Like, there's boat guys, there's car guys. We're kind of space guys.
Yeah.
And flight guys. So, that
it's because it's a little bit more fantastical, and we're obviously more into that kind of fantasy like realm of things where there's Marvel, there's DC's, even Star Trek can be kind of fantastical in some of the things that happens. Like magic hand waves away a lot of things. So it might just be that's kind of our personalities, and so we're more interested in space travel because of that.
Yeah. So first of all, we were talking about flight. Orville and Wilbur Wright. That's right. First took flight.
I definitely didn't just think Wilbur Soot.
Oh no, that's a dated reference.
That
old. Makes us feel like we're 10 years older than we are.
Oh my.
But at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, in 1903, Wilbur and Orville, is that how you say that? Orville Wright took off in the Wright Flyer, I think it was called. Mm-hmm. It's the first time that we've achieved what we consider flight, which is being in the air longer than probably like 10 seconds.
Yeah, like actual
like it wasn't just they went up and they went back down. They went up and were up for a minute before going back down.
Right. And it was like a controlled landing too. Like they actually figured things out. They didn't just
slam to the ground.
So that was kind of obviously like a really monumental occasion. It's actually really funny. Some newspaper, I don't remember what, probably like, honestly I don't know, but some newspaper that's even still around today put out a story saying man will never fly for 1,000,000 years, and then like literally 3 days later
the Wright brothers did that.
Yep. And so that's so funny. And then by the way, it's like within just a couple of decades from there we're on the moon too.
Within 5 decades after that.
We won't fly for 1,000,000 years. Within 60 we're on the moon.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Because it was, I think hot air balloons have been around longer. That's been the aerial thing that has been around the longest. And so that was the probably earliest thing. And then the Wright brothers come in with some modern aviation and, winged things imitating birds and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And from them, there have been advancements into, as technology has advanced and we entered an age of machine, and we got better at making different machines. We kept improving planes. We kept improving our flight times and how far we could go.
And of course, like an economy arose out of it, and the competition involved in that drove development for creating bigger, better, faster, more efficient planes. But also another really big thing was that World War I, World War II, you were able to have a strategic advantage if you were planes in the air, right? Yeah. You can really, like the earliest days, it was just scouting, right? You can get a good vantage point, you can go up there and you can scout. Then eventually what happened was they would let you take your gun on board the plane and you would shoot at, the German soldier just with a regular gun on the plane. And that was kind of the start of aerial combat. And then, of course, they're like, wait, we could just strap a machine gun onto this. And so you can see how it would develop from that. And having war just pushed forward man in the sky, right?
Yeah. War was definitely, like, we would not have the advancements in aviation we had without World War I with planes. And then the rocket engines and creating missiles. And yes, the Germans have the first rocket to touch what we would, I don't know what we call that, but like the edge of what is the Earth's atmosphere.
Yeah.
Like the V2, like Nazi Germany has the claim to that, right? Like in 1941, 42, something like that.
It was a couple of years into the war.
Yeah, it was a couple of years into the war, and they just decided to launch something straight up into the sky, and it made it very, very, very far.
And then they were like, wait, we can strap bombs to these things. And then of course, war drives ICBM development, things like that.
And then,
nuclear bombs even towards the end. But then we get the end of the war. We're actually going then into the Cold War.
Yeah,
and
the space race.
During that, space race was big. Trying to poach old Nazi scientists, try to get them on your side. There's
Sputnik and
you don't, if you think that you can get some good recon from the air, how much better recon can you get from space? And so then obviously the USSR sends up Sputnik, and there's a lot of fear that's kind of created and manufactured, not necessarily real fear, but fear that was kind of propagandized into the general populace by the US government.
Oh yeah.
To try to push forward funding, essentially, for NASA and for creating our own program to rival. And so, of course, we're starting off at a disadvantage here. They've already sent the first probe up there. Then they even send the first dog up there.
And monkeys and many animals, poor animals.
Tons of animals, using those. And then we get to the first man, Yuri Gagarin. Is it Gagarin or Gagarin? I don't remember, but...
I don't know. On Vostok, is that what it's called?
I believe so.
Vostok 1 or something like that.
And so he makes it to space. He's the first human to leave the Earth's atmosphere. And from there, obviously, America really needed to get into gear and start going because we were really far behind. And we did. We really did. We're like,
it was like a 7-year period of time.
Okay, well, we're going to the moon then.
Yeah.
And obviously, we absolutely dominated that. We crushed it.
Apollo
I think
11.
we are still the only country to have a flag on the moon. Maybe.
Well, I mean, I think NASA does, but we own NASA basically. That's how.
That works. Well, but like an actual country flag. Yeah. I think there might be some European country.
Maybe
that has.
We don't. Maybe Elon Musk has a flag on the moon. Maybe in the comments down below.
You can tell us if you know.
Yeah, if you know who has a flag on the moon, please put it there. Maybe China. I don't know.
This is all just another reminder. All of this is from our own memory banks here. We don't have anything in front of us telling us. This is just what we can remember. So if we make any errors, that's why. Please tell us that we're wrong in the comments because we want engagement.
I do have a minor reference for the DC stuff, but all this stuff is off the top of our heads.
Yeah, all the actual history stuff. The part that kind of matters.
The part that is actually we don't take up space in our heads.
We this is just entirely off of our memory, but
so
I will actually, even in my Star Trek thing, it'll be off of my memory. So I guess I'm just better than Judah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So Apollo 11, Neil Armstrong. Not Louis Armstrong. For some reason, in the cultural zeitgeist, we've confused Neil Armstrong and Louis Armstrong. No, Louis Armstrong did not go to the moon.
I am on the moon. Help!
No. So it's Neil Armstrong with the Apollo 11 team in 1969.
I think the word you're looking for is crew. Not team.
Oh yeah, sorry.
This isn't a superhero squad.
Yeah, sorry. You gotta change my my vocabulary.
Vernacular.
My vernacular.
There you go. Big words, guys. Big words going up in this podcast. That's why you should subscribe. Subscribe, please, and like, And also comment, like we already just said.
Please subscribe. Scroll down just a little bit, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification button, hit the like button, leave a comment down below, all the above. If you do that, we will wish blessings and pray blessings upon all the tens of thousands of generations of your children.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, we won't do that.
Possibly. And who knows if that would actually mean anything. But I guess find out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See what happens.
We're trying to remember to do this earlier English is hard. We are trying to do this earlier on in the episodes because we keep doing it at the end of the episodes, and you guys listen for about 4 seconds before clicking off. So we got to get that on average at least.
Yeah, we got to get this earlier. We got to start out first second. Please subscribe.
Thank you. So yeah, as we were saying, we finally get to space. We've got the Apollo 11 crew, not team, and there are even a bunch of after. I'm running on 4 hours of sleep.
It's all right. That's not that much.
We have a bunch of other missions that follow that, of course. And
some explosions, but that happens.
Some of them blow up. Some of them blow up before even leaving the atmosphere, very sadly.
Yeah.
And it's all around kind of a chaotic time of just trying to get things up there and do things up there. But eventually the Soviet Union collapses. 1991.
Yeah.
Soviet Union's gone. And we're kind of like, oh, well, I guess we just own the world now, and we're not trying to like race anyone to the moon anymore.
So we slowed down a little bit, and we became. International Space Station's 1998, right?
Yeah.
So
there is some cooperation in there. That's more on the scientific realm, and it was especially after the USSR falls. Yeah. We're trying to have this time of like world peace and everyone getting along, and the UN is like a big thing and all of that. And so the ISS is kind of resulting from that of international cooperation. Eventually, I think China was never allowed in there, or they were, and then they were eventually banned from the ISS. But other than that, it's pretty much every country, even to this day, anyone. I mean, even Russia
is up on there
still
with countries that don't like Russia.
Right. So it's just a big sign of like international cooperation. And so we did still kind of have that going on, and it was also with research. And so kind of those two factors were able to keep some things going for a little while, but then other countries started having developments in aerospace engineering and in orbital mechanics and all of that. There was like North Korea, for example, they start getting into ballistics, they start getting into nuclear weapons, things like that. And so kind of looking up into the sky becomes a little bit more important because of this.
Yeah. We get telescopes and then things like that.
Right. And eventually kind of the dominance of the United States comes into question. I don't think it necessarily should have, but it did come into question a little bit. And so powers like China, powers like Russia, they were starting to have a bigger presence in space again. So we're starting to think, oh, maybe we should again. NASA's trying to do some things. We've got rovers going to Mars and things like that. But we also have the introduction of some private space companies.
Yeah, and the private space sector is what is like this century has been the thing that's exploded, Companies that started in 2000 are, regularly bringing celebrities and people with great wealth into the space.
Of course, starting with SpaceX being the biggest one.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, it's interesting because really in the history books, what's cooled off is, countries going to space. And we've had this interesting privatization because we've become concerned about, dominance in the final frontier of space by a country. So we've relegated that to corporations, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, I actually think it's good in the long run. I like free markets. I like when private individuals and corporations even are trying to do things themselves and not the government. Because especially knowing that in the future, it is very likely that the space industry will become a massive thing.
Yeah.
There will be markets that will evolve just from industry in space. There will be probably in the longer term, there would be things like asteroid mining. There would be maybe in the nearer term trying to get things like helium-3 from the moon. We don't have very much helium-3 here on Earth, and we need it for, like, desperately need it for medical equipment. And there's a very limited supply here on Earth. So at a minimum, we're probably going to have to go up there and bring some back. And that's an industry. That's something a company will do, and they'll get money for it. And it'll spur on development in that regard. And I don't think that that's something that the government should be able to be in charge of.
Yeah.
Because that gives the government way more power than they need to have.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's really the discussion of the history to date, right, of space travel. And so Kirk, building off of that, is going to bring us into the fantastical realm with the history and then just some fun facts about the space travel in Star Trek.
Yep.
Because Star Trek is primarily about traveling in space, if you didn't know.
So just before this, I showed Judah the intro sequence, the intro credits to Star Trek Enterprise, the 2005-ish show. And the credits is basically just a slideshow with a song, Faith of the Heart, over top of it. And it's kind of going through exactly this, the history of spaceflight as canon in the Star Trek universe. So it shows some things that we were talking about. It shows some flight. It shows, with the Wright brothers, it shows some early, World War I, World War II planes. It shows the space shuttle. It shows the moon landing, right? It shows some of the Apollo 11 footage, like the actual footage from it. And then it moves on from there, developing from that. It shows a couple of more realistic, but also
fantastical.
Yeah, and obviously Star Trek-y type ships, right? Like the black and the white kind of color scheme, the smooth kind of metallic type art, essentially, of what everybody knows.
The retro feature kind of ship
everybody
design.
knows is recognizably Star Trek. And so some of the ships they're really small, and they can't do very much. It's just kind of like a shuttlecraft essentially between the Earth and the Moon type deal. And then it shows the first warp flight, which is from, I believe, Bozeman, Montana in 21
something.
I think I'm totally getting my dates wrong on this. This is something I should have looked up. In Star Trek, it's actually a lot earlier than you'd think because it started in the 60s, and so everything was super far future back then, and now we're 60 years later, and it's like, hold on a minute.
That was
World War III.
Was yesterday.
Yeah, World War III is supposed to have already happened by now, and it obviously hasn't yet. So
yeah.
But I can't quite remember. It might have even been 21st century, like late 21st century. But it's after World War III. We're able to develop the warp engine. The Vulcans come down and meet us. They're like, hey, guys, you finally figured out how to go to space, so we're going to talk to you now. And that obviously spurs on a bunch of development. Eventually, there's then... And we're still in this sequence, by the way. We're seeing the development of the first Warp 5 engine, which I believe this is from the old Star Trek Warp scale, which is even lower than what you might see in something like the Next Generation, where Warp 5 is actually... I think Strange New Worlds might be using the old system. I don't know. In universe, they changed the scale.
Huh. Interesting.
Kind of in between the original series and the Next Generation. In universe timeline, they changed the warp scale because it wasn't making any sense with the original series. It wasn't thought that far forward, right? So I believe this is Warp 5 on the old scale. So when, in the Next Generation and all the shows around then, they're saying, oh, go Warp 5. You're getting to another planet pretty quickly then. But this is you're barely getting out of the small, tiny little part of your galactic neighborhood going Warp 5, right?
Yeah.
But it's a big moment. And so the entirety of the show, Star Trek Enterprise, is kind of focused on those early days of, we finally got Warp 5, let's go out there and do things.
Yeah.
And there's still there's a little bit more development in there. There's kind of these Freightliner type ships. They can only go about Warp 2, which again, I was telling you, Warp 5 is nothing. Warp 2 is even more nothing. And it's just these slow, clunky spaceships that take months and months and months to go between systems. And so you basically raise your family on these things. But they're kind of built like an 18-wheeler. So, you've got like the main area in the front. You have kind of the spine that goes back a little bit farther. And you can attach and detach these kind of cargo containers to it, right? And that's kind of building actually the start of the in-universe economy that would promote this moving between systems and things like that. That why you would want even to get a Warp 5 engine. It's because you can make more money if you do that. Now, of course, this is supposed to be like a utopian future, right? So there's not really like money as a concern, but certainly resources are a concern, and this is not a very advanced Earth, and it's not in the United Federation of Planets yet. That hasn't been created. So it's really important that they're able to like do all of this trade. And so that kind of provides the reason for why they're developing things, kind of paralleling what would happen in the real world. So I think that that's a nice little touch. And of course, everybody can recognize a number of Starfleet ships, the Enterprise
being number one, which
we mentioned in the last episode.
I think one of the most iconic spaceships of all time.
Right.
Yeah.
And so obviously there's going to be a leap there. The Enterprise, the NX-01 Enterprise, which is like an experimental ship, essentially, is not even like this like white metallic color. It's kind of this gray, dingy. It looks really good, but it's also kind of like obviously cobbled together because we don't have that many resources yet. And it kind of fits the style in general shapes, but then other than that, it's like way different, right? And so there's a development there into what we know from the Enterprise, and then the ships get bigger, they get stronger, they get better. War, even in universe, fuels development in different areas, and so now every Starfleet ship is like this crazy warship at a certain point in the timeline. And a lot of development there. There's actually a lot of variant warp kind of drives. So there's the regular warp drive. There's, in Discovery, they introduced the spore drive, which connects to the mycelial network, which is like a fungus alternate universe. And it's really crazy, and it kind of doesn't make any sense. But a giant space tardigrade can fly the thing. I know.
Excuse me. I just have to. Can you repeat that sentence one more time?
Right. It sounds like it's something that should be coming out of DC.
Yeah,
right?
That does sound like it's something.
So
that
this
should be
is
coming out of DC.
2017 CBS and Paramount kind of ruining some things, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's not very. That doesn't sound very realistic to me.
Right. So it's a little weird. It's a little more fantastical, but yeah.
I haven't studied mushrooms in a while, but
they go on the shrooms. They get a giant space tardigrade to go on the shrooms,
like,
and they can teleport. By the way, they can teleport literally anywhere in the known universe.
How do they have like a
endpoint?
Do they have how?
You just gotta watch the show.
Really? They don't even give an explanation?
There is, but you just gotta watch the show.
It's a person.
Well, the tardigrade has to pilot the thing. Yeah. Right. And then eventually they're like, oh, but we don't want the tardigrade to, so we need a person to. And so they do genetic engineering, which is not allowed to do that. But yeah, it's kind of crazy.
That is crazy.
But there's also transwarp drives, which the Borg like to use. There's slipstream drives, which this one big-headed alien that knows how to translate everything used in Voyager. And then it was actually even brought back for Prodigy. There's in Prodigy, there's another one. It's the, what's it called? It's a tiny little star.
What? Like a dwarf star?
Yeah. Well, not. What? It's like they get this like hyper tiny compressed star, and they put it in the ship, and they are able to use it for like super speed propulsion thing. What's it called? It's called the protostar drive.
What the heck?
It's just like a tiny little star, like an actual sun, but tiny. And the ship, by the way, is also like really, really, really tiny too. It's like everything is much smaller scale. And they use that to get from like the Delta Quadrant to the Gamma Quadrant, just barely near the Alpha Quadrant, which is where everything is set. So they're able to go from basically the entire other side of the galaxy, which is kind of like where Voyager was stranded, and it was supposed to take them 70 years, that through different mechanisms they cut it down to 7, because it was 7 seasons. but what would have been a 70-year trip, they're able to do in like with this protostar drive.
That's crazy.
And that obviously kind of breaks things too, going into the future, because now we have Discovery and eventually Starfleet Academy set in the 31st century, and it's like, okay, if we're developing 700 years from this, then everywhere is a 2-second jump away.
Yeah, it's not far
as long
at all.
as it's in this galaxy. So they're going to have to figure something out for that. As far as the spore drive goes, as far as the spore drive goes from Discovery, they classify it because it goes to the future, and so they have the temporal prime directive, and so they classify everything involved in it, and that includes the spore drive.
So there's no.
So they don't know about the spore drive until the 31st century. So from there's actually, even in the storyline, there's a little bit of development, but then they kind of give up on it, and it doesn't make any sense, and it's so poorly handled, I would say. But there are, even in Star Trek, these kind of crazy out there forms of propulsion that's not just like your standard warp drive.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting getting into that with you, but. Yeah. So now that we've gotten a little bit more into the fantastical realm, DC, which goes crazy with everything it does.
We're going to be out there. So, starting off, iconic one, Superman's rocket, right? It's a staple of the alien technology that you get in the DC universe from Thanagar, Tamaran, Krypton, right? These, like, classic sci-fi designs, like Asimov-era alien world technology kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. That is really interesting, and is, because of the way that comics are and the art and the way it's passed down, is kind of preserved. You know, like some of the character designs may change over time to adapt, but like the ship that Superman landed in looked the same in 1938 as it did in 1986, as it did in 2011, as it does today, right? Like, every time they do that origin, that's iconic. That little, like, blue rocket, right?
Yeah.
It's classic, and it exemplifies, like, the alien technology that's out there. And now, on the alien side of things, we don't really get a lot of explanation into how it works, or we do, and I just haven't read that, which might be the case. But what we do get a lot of explanation for is FTL. Specifically, what FTL relates to is how the Green Lantern Corps is able to travel in space faster than light travel, is FTL. FTL is incorporated into Green Lantern rings. It's incorporated into many, like the people from Ran. I don't know what they're called. I wouldn't call them Ranians because that sounds a little weird. But the people from Ran in Adam Strange's world, they also, use FTL.
Would it be for the Ranins?
Ranins, maybe?
How's it spelled?
RANN.
RANN?
Yeah.
Ranins.
Ranians.
So just add
Ranites.
AN at the end.
Yeah.
Maybe Ranites.
Yeah. So
somebody tell us in the comments after you've liked and subscribed.
The people from Adam Strange world use FTL, right? And faster than light travel enables them to basically, it's like hyperspace or warp, where they're just able to shoot really fast across the universe, right? And FTL is how, gets incorporated alongside LexCorp and Terrific Tech and Wayne Enterprises. They have like a big space race between those three companies, which gets put to the side because the alien technology comes, and guess what? That's more advanced than anything the three of those can come up with. So they incorporate that into like the Watchtower or into the Javelin ships that the Justice League and Justice Society use, and so on. And then you get what is the crazy, very out there stuff, where we get to the New Gods and boom tubes. So a boom tube is space travel in the sense that it's literally you just walk through a circle and you end up on the other side of the circle exactly where you want to go.
You mean like the Stargate?
Yeah. It's kind of, no.
But it doesn't have to be fixed portals.
Yeah, it's not fixed.
Okay.
So the way that boom tubes work, there's these things called mother boxes, which were made very popular by Steppenwolf in the Justice League film from 2017, where he was constantly moaning about his mother, which is very weird. I don't know why they did it like that. But the mother boxes are from the New Gods, and they enable the operation of boom tubes to be opened up wherever the person desires to go. Mm-hmm. And now boom tubes don't work traditionally like portals, right? They're not like, they look like it, but the science behind them is like, this is the way that they develop their space travel. This is the final culmination from the New Gods world of like flying. Like this, that technology that they would use on their ships and stuff. really came into boom tubes, right? And so now it's like personal use. People can carry boom tubes around. You can boom tube yourself from the other side of the galaxy.
Go boom tube yourself.
Yeah, go boom tube yourself, right? Yeah, and it's really interesting because the way that, like, you know, there's that classic sci-fi, like 20s Asimov designs from the aliens of DC traditionally. Jack Kirby has a very unique art style. You get this a lot, and it's very iconic for Galactus with all the tubes and the moving stuff. But Jack Kirby is responsible for the creation of the New Gods at DC, part of his long Superman run, which not a lot of people know about, but you should check it out. If you like early Marvel stuff, primarily Kirby's art, because it is iconic in any form in anything he draws, it's iconic. But Kirby's Superman run introduces the New Gods and their art style and boom tubes, and the way that they're drawn is very unique, and it's these very detailed and intricate and like so many wires and lines and tubes on these machines. And it's very different in contrasting with the, you know, other aspects in the world of space travel. And then you get to the human side where it's very sleek and modern and always getting updated and everything looks like a bat plane, or, you know what I mean? Where it's like sleek jet kind of vibes. Yeah.
Modern day has ruined everything.
It has.
Like the spore drive.
Yeah.
That's a modern invention, and it ruins things.
The super lame. Yeah. But yeah, it's very out there with how they traverse. It's not like, oh yeah, this is the logical progression. It's like, yeah, the logical progression is a box that can take me anywhere in the universe.
So it's kind of just it's not that the humans necessarily develop all this stuff. It's that the aliens already did, and so kind of humanity in some cases just kind of takes it on. At least a lot of the heroes just take it on, and a lot of the villains. Maybe not the regular plebes.
No,
but you know the people who the comics will focus on,
and everyone else to keep up with. When Batman's best friend is Superman, and he can get Kryptonian technology and get Martian technology and. You know,
so that's where Star Trek is a little bit more grounded, and DC is more trying to tell a story, and they'll just say alien technology to figure it out. Not that Star Trek doesn't do that. My gosh, does Star Trek do that? But kind of to a lesser extent, they try to do a little bit of technobabble to get around it. Actually, there's a rule. I think it's... So for fiction, if you want something to sound reasonable, you don't have to come up with, like, all the science behind why it works.
Yeah.
You just have to give, like... 2 or 3 layers of explanation. So this works because of this, which works because of this, and then you don't have to explain anything else. Even if the final point doesn't make any sense, it doesn't matter because you've given a few levels of explanation, and so you can kind of take yourself out of it. That's what Star Trek likes to do.
Yeah.
DC, though, they're just the aliens developed it,
it gets into an interesting distinction that brings us into, you know, in comics the debate is DC or Marvel. In sci-fi, or the classic debate is Star Trek, Star Wars. All right, but the key difference between both of those is the difference between sci-fi and sci-fantasy, right? Science fiction is based off of the idea that it could possibly happen in the future. Like, there is a logical progression that may be a little fantastical, but there's a logical progression that could lead to the world of Star Trek. There's a logical progression that could lead to a world of superheroes like in Marvel. Whereas Star Wars and DC are more, this is fantastical. Like, we're going to go all out with these crazy things, you know? Like, Superman can fly in space because he can hold his breath for a long time, you know?
I could do that, too.
Yeah, Kirk could do that, too, because he's a good swimmer. Like, Aquaman also doesn't need to really worry about space because his skin is so tough, and he can hold his breath for long periods of time, right? It's like, that's crazy, right? But, you know, it's and not... And
that, by the way, that kind of proves... the point of, like, the levels of explanation, right? He can breathe in space, or not that he can breathe in space.
He can
hold his breath in
for
space
a period of
because
time.
He can hold his breath, right? So, like, he doesn't need to breathe in space because he can hold his breath. That's the explanation. You're not able to hold your breath in space. You will die if you hold your breath in space, right? If, for whatever reason, you are ever, like, on the ISS and you get blown out into space, don't try to hold your breath. Let all the air out, because otherwise, the vacuum of space will suck the air out of your lungs, and it will go through your skin and your bones and everything else. It will pop you.
Like a balloon. It's fun.
But obviously, nobody really... I mean, first of all, nobody really knows that. But then also, Nobody's really caring in their fictional stories.
Superman's Kryptonian, so there's an
Superman,
explanation there.
Yeah,
Aquaman is just like, oh, his skin is tough.
But that's where Aquaman,
so if he holds his breath, it's fine.
Yeah. So for Aquaman, it doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah.
But nobody really cares because you've at least given one level explanation, and so they can kind of just brush it aside and be like, even if they did know that, like me, for example, you can just say, that's okay. Like, you're giving some explanation, so I'll just let it be, right? Your brain is a lot more easily going to just take that at face value.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is a major difference.
Sci-fi, sci-fantasy. Yeah. It's super cool, both these subjects. And then
Super
cool. I know.
That's fantastic.
This has been a super cool trek, and we got one last point to hit, which is, what do we think about the future of space travel? And Kirk, do you want to start us off with future space travel?
Yeah, so kind of got a little bit into it with how there would probably in the real world be like an economy that is born out of this. Like, we need helium-3, right? Or asteroid mining or things like that. Asteroid mining being a little bit farther in the future. But I think the kind of this competitive, like, free market is going to be the way that we develop space industry, space travel, 100%. Things like that. I think, as you've mentioned, sci-fi versus sci-fantasy, the Marvel and the Star Trek roots of anything involved in space is probably the more realistic of the two. So if you wanted to see, like, what's a more or less kind of realistic perspective on the future, those would be the places that you're looking, right? Even recently with Marvel, there was the Fantastic Four, and there is space travel in that, which I had mentioned when we reviewed it, that I was not expecting that at all.
Good. It was good.
And it was really good. And it was just a lot of fun. And it very much reminded me of Star Trek, right?
Yes.
And it's more grounded, right? Like, there's this drive that they use to, like, get places. It's very reminiscent of the Star Wars. It's not warp in Star Wars, is it? It's
hyperdrive.
Hyperdrive, yeah. Yep. The little hyperdrive things for, like, the Jedi's little, like, shuttlecraft ships.
Yeah.
Like, they go into the ring thing. It was very similar.
Oh, that's awesome.
So even in Star Wars, of course, there is a little bit of realism in things. You can't just be, like, totally out there like DC.
Well, there's an explanation.
But you can look kind of to Marvel. You can look kind of to Star Trek to see, like, oh, well, there would be scientific ways around getting these things. But there are some actual, like, real-life missions coming up.
There are, which is interesting.
And they're actually quite fascinating. I believe we still have that spaceship that's orbiting the sun and trying to get really close encounters with the sun to kind of study all that. We've got more telescopes going up left and right. Just about a month ago, we opened up a new telescope, I believe in Chile, that's just on the top of a mountain, really high up, so there's less atmosphere, and it's one of the most advanced telescopes we've ever created, and it is capturing things like crazy. Like, it is absolutely insane. You guys need to look it up. We in just a couple of years, we're probably going to find 10 times the amount of objects in space that we have found to this point. In just the next few years, we will 10x the amount of interstellar, maybe not interstellar, intrastellar bodies that we know about.
Yeah.
And there are going to be a lot of ones even that are like, these are things that could hit the Earth, and we just haven't known about them.
Yeah.
But because of this telescope, now maybe we will. And also imagine how many more we still wouldn't know about even with this telescope, right?
Yeah.
Another interesting thing is, if you remember back in, like, 2019, I believe it was, we detected a asteroid coming in to the solar system from outside the solar system. It was Oumuamua, right? Yeah. Named after the observatory or the hill that the observatory was on that captured it. I don't
Something
remember.
Like that.
Or they might all just be named
Oumuamua.
But it was Hawaii, of course. And a few years after that, and that was the first time we had ever seen something come from not in our solar system into our solar system, which was crazy. And then like 1 or 2 years after that, they found another one. And now, just a couple of months ago, they found another one. And or maybe even just a month ago. And I think it's the Chilean observatory that found it that just recently opened.
Huh.
But this time, both other cases, we actually found it as it was already leaving the solar system. Huh. This time we have it on its entry. And this time we have many, many more things out there in the solar system. We weren't able to, like, catch up with Oumuamua or the other one last time to, like, get closer and like really see what it is. But this one is going to come close to Mars. And now, while it is on the going to be on the other side of the sun from Earth, so we won't be able to poke our telescopes towards it. Now we've got things over at Mars that can just turn around and look. Yeah. We've got things in like the orbit of Jupiter. We've got things in the orbit of Saturn. We've got things in the orbit of the sun. We have things much more things out there today that we have built and just launched up there into the solar system. So even though this time it's again going to be on the other side of the solar system and we wouldn't be able to figure out any more detail about it, we have things out there to do that. Where our sensor network is growing so we can find these things, and it's really cool. Every single craft that we throw out there is just another bunch of data points we can gather on everything, and it widens the net on the possible knowledge that we could have. And then of course if we didn't even have the telescopes here on Earth that we're just constantly building more and more and better, we would never have even found this to begin with to point our spaceships at when we see them going by Mars, right? So it's really interesting. That's kind of in the near term. It's like a very near term, not necessarily future of space travel, but it is in the future.
From now, it's the future.
But do you happen to know of any missions or any cool things going on out there?
So what I think, right, and this is seeing space as somewhat as like the West, like in American history. If you look at space somewhat like the West, there's going to be two things. Kirk mentioned there's going to be we're going to run out of materials that we need to make stuff that will become essential. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have to look towards the stars to get that. So there's going to be an economy of trade, and with that comes an opportunity to make money, bringing people out there to do that.
Yes, and space tourism too. That's kind of the biggest thing right now is space tourism.
Space tourism and vacations in space. And, like, there have been talks about this. I think it was the Amazon, whatever, Jeff Bezos' space. Blue Origin. The Blue Origin people. There was something talking about, like a cruise spaceship. Like how you would go on a cruise.
Yeah.
Like a 6-day cruise or whatever. It would be in space. Mm-hmm. Which sounds absolutely insane to me, and there's so many ways it can go wrong. But, we already
there is a demand for it.
We already send, like, thousands, if not millions, of planes around the world every day. Yeah. So, like, what's one out of the atmosphere?
We'll figure it out. And we have the Starship in development. There's been a couple of setbacks, and they keep blowing up. But eventually, SpaceX is going to figure it out, and that's going to be the biggest and most powerful ship ever in the history of history.
It's going to be super cool.
And it can send 200 people up at once. How many do we send up at once right now? Like 4 to 5, 6, maybe. Like, it's not that much. If we can send 200 people up there at once, if we just recreated Apollo 11, we would get, what would it be? Probably 20, 30 times the amount of materials, data, things like that, just because there'd be 20 to 30 the amount of people that were even on Apollo 11 going even on the one trip. Right? Yeah. So it just makes everything exponential.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane and exciting to look forward to, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love the fact that fiction gets to touch on these areas of things that are, like, I find it funny going back and reading old comics or old novels, like reading Asimov and stuff like that, this old science fiction stuff and what they thought of the future. And it's interesting, and I love the fact that we always are kind of looking forward in a sense. And looking at what can we do next, and in some senses, like, things materialize from those things that are ideas that wouldn't have been had by these scientists anyways if those hadn't been envisioned by these creative minds, right?
Right. And another thing to point out is there's often been this kind of doom and gloom, like defeatist mentality about space travel, where people would say, born too late to explore the Earth, born too early to explore the stars. I think right now it's actually not that we're too early to explore the stars. I think obviously early days, but I think that very much within our lifetimes there will be so many things going on out there.
Yeah, they said man would never fly in a million years. We think 6 days later. Yeah, 6 days later, we think man will never go to space in a million years, and
So it's going to be really interesting. I think it's possible by the time Judah and I are in, like, our 30s or 40s, there are going to be crazy things going on out there, and it wouldn't be too late for us to join in on them.
Yeah.
Which is the crazy thing.
Which is insane. Yeah.
Especially the richer we get, the more likely it would be.
Yes.
But even assuming we kind of just stay middle of the road, average American people.
Yeah.
Like,
it may become accessible
case,
to that.
It's not... out of the realm of possibility that we
Which
could
is
be
crazy.
personally involved in things like that. And if not even that we personally benefit from a space economy.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. I'm excited for the next couple of decades in all things space.
Yeah, this was really fun. I enjoyed talking about space. It's a grand old time. We thought this would be a short subject, but we both talk a lot about this, and we said a lot about this, which is good.
Yeah. Gonna be honest though, it's still making pretty good time. Right now in the recording, we're looking at 45 minutes. I'll be honest, probably 5 will get cut from this.
So it'll be
so not too much. Cutting a few ums and ahs, a few blank spaces where we were trying to gather our thoughts and things like that.
Yeah.
But it makes it actually pretty good time, I'd say.
Yeah,
let us know,
getting better.
Would you prefer things a little bit longer, a little bit shorter? I know a lot of people don't want to sit around for an hour plus to listen to things. So we're trying to make things a little bit shorter. But if you guys would want to listen to us for an hour, then let us know, and we might be more willing to record longer things.
Yeah, next time, what's guaranteed, we're going to be absolutely diving into Batman, both Batman spinning out of All In and Absolute Batman, and Star Trek, next 2 episodes of Strange New Worlds as well, for our DC Star Trek Nerd Out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, good morning, good evening, and good night, and God bless y'all.
Bye.